Yo guys, I'm Dunmere, a top 100 main tank player, and I have a Doomfist guide for you guys. I figured now that it is a tank, we need to learn how to play it differently, so enjoy. First, let's cover the abilities. The first ability we're going to talk about is Hand Cannon. This weapon fires close range shotgun blasts. Overall, it's the same as in Overwatch 1, other than having been reduced in damage. But it's very important to damage output on Doomfist, so make sure to hit your shots while you use it. Now for Seismic Slam, Doomfist Seismic Slam has changed. This ability now allows you to perform a large leap that on landing sends out a shockwave that deals damage to enemies. You can jump with it to high ground or dive into backlines of your enemy. Power Block is one of Doomfist's new abilities. Protect yourself for a short time and reduce damage taken drastically. You move slower during this cooldown, but if you take enough damage, you'll gain an empowered state on your punch ability that deals more damage, stuns longer, and charges up faster. Now for Rocket Punch. Rocket Punch is one of Doomfist's abilities that was changed for his new tank version. You charge it up and dash forward to punch enemies like before, but deals much less damage than Overwatch 1 and can hit multiple enemies. Aim for a group with it and you'll get great value, as punching multiple enemies out of position will often net you some kills. Doomfist's passive ability is the best defense. Gain shields from dealing damage with your abilities. This ability is also an important part of Doomfist's capabilities, so make sure to hit as many people as you can to get those overshields. Doomfist's ultimate is Meteor Strike. It remains the same as Overwatch 1. Ult to leap up into the air and become invulnerable to enemies, then select a location to slam down onto. You deal damage in a ring around you, so make sure to target where a lot of people are grouped up. So what are Doomfist's strengths and weaknesses? With Doomfist becoming a tank, a lot changes with its abilities. Whereas before he was adept at assassinating vulnerable targets or punching them into walls to kill them, he now has new capabilities and new responsibilities at the cost of his one-shot potential. While you can still hunt down squishies and assassinate them, you don't have the consistency of a slam, shoot, uppercut, shoot combo that used to be so effective, and you most definitely cannot expect to kill your target by punching them into a wall at full health. But having said this, he did gain abilities to tank also, and because of this he now has a lot of potential for displacing enemies and controlling their positioning. This means Doomfist can frontline brawl against enemies much better than before, and stuff enemies as they tend to push through choke points. Whether it be by slamming into groups of enemies, or splitting them with a well-timed punch, there's a lot of crowd control Doomfist can take advantage of. On top of this, Doomfist has gotten buffs to both his HP and his ability to tank damage. With his Power Block ability, he reduces damage drastically on him and can use this to buy time when caught out of position, stalling on point, or maintaining a strong position guarding a choke point. Of course, Power Block also makes his punch stronger, so you have extra firepower once you cancel the ability. Along with tank potential, Doomfist has been given more mobility with the new slam ability, so he's even more powerful as a dive character. High grounds are no longer an awkward contest for him and are something he can consistently aggro onto. However, Doomfist does have weaknesses regardless of his strengths. Since he doesn't have a shield like other tanks, Doomfist doesn't have any real defense against stun abilities. So if your targets hold onto their stuns when you jump onto them, you're likely to find yourself stunned out of the game. In the same way, he's vulnerable to anti-effects from Ana. When Doomfist is anti'd, he's forced to escape or he'll likely die. Due to the strength of Ana and the ease at which she can consistently hit him with her nade, you won't find yourself having too much fun playing against Anas. Finally, Doomfist simply doesn't deal very much damage. The consistent damage dealt by his abilities is much lower than before, so the majority of what current Doomfist can output is in his primary fire. Miss these shots and you'll find yourself feeling awkwardly weak, but even if you do hit them consistently, you can find yourself being out-healed very often. So in what situation is it a good idea to play Doomfist? Doomfist plays well in maps with a lot of high ground. Linear and flat maps can be a struggle for Doomfist though, as it will lose to other tanks brawling on these maps like Orisa, Reinhardt, or Junker Queen. Doomfist wants to dive onto enemy backlines and displace their tanks or attempt to assassinate supports, and he can't do either of these on these sort of maps. So look to play Doomfist in situations where the other team can't always just see him and shoot him in the face. Also, if you're playing on a long range map, Doomfist is definitely not the right pick. You'll struggle to reach your enemies and find yourself dead once you can finally get to them. Doomfist just doesn't have the capabilities to handle this sort of situation. However, as Doomfist does have the ability to hunt squishies if your mechanics are good enough, picking him into immobile characters like Zenyatta will lean best into his playstyle. His mobility is buffed and excellent though, so he can still hunt any 200 HP hero he chooses as long as they don't have many stuns. Heroes like Cassidy, Widowmaker, and Moira are all viable targets when playing Doomfist. Now, thinking about your own composition, Doomfist will get the most value paired with other characters who want to play a dive-based playstyle like he does. Tracer, Genji, Kiriko, and others will all be able to finish off the dives he starts and support him through them. However, range hit scan heroes like Widowmaker, Ashe, Sojourn, Cassidy, and others can still fall upon displaced targets, so these aren't bad choices either. Now to put everything together, how should you play Doomfist? Doomfist has three main ways he can play. The first is to assassinate backline targets, the second to displace enemies so your team can kill them, and the third is to contest choke points very hard. Starting with the first of these, assassinating backline enemies. You'll need to have a solid amount of mechanical skill to effectively do this though. Doomfist damage got healthy nerfs from Overwatch 1, so ensuring you hit your cooldowns and especially making sure you hit your primary fire shots is extremely important. With this playstyle, you want to charge up your punch with power block before you go in. While this isn't absolutely required, it'll make it much easier and allow you to kill through extra healing. Either way, this playstyle is all about watching for opportunities. These will be something like a vulnerable target being separate from its team, somebody being late to cross through a choke with its team, or you seeing an important stun cooldown be used like on a sleep dart. Once one of these opportunities arises, you should jump onto them with your slam ability and burn them down with primary fires and punches into the wall. The exact combo for securing a kill is dependent on every situation, but weaving in a primary fire after the slam, then punching them, then finishing them with more primary fires is a solid way to start learning this. Don't be afraid to commit your punch after jumping though, because it's on a very short cooldown, and the overshield you gain from it will make you survive longer anyway. However, always look to punch your target into a nearby wall. It stuns them long enough to make primary fires easy to hit, so this is a great way to secure kills. Moving on to the second way to play, displacing enemies. This is a very effective tool that can be used well as a general engagement strategy. It allows you to bypass Doomfist's limited damage and force an enemy player into your team's line of sight where they can frag them. Just keep in mind, there are two main ways to go about doing this. You either jump in with slam and then go for a punch, or drop off a high ground with your punch and then slam to escape. The slam engage option is more risky, but it is viable if you don't expect to take too much damage with your slam engage. Just keep in mind that you have to survive for around 7 seconds to get an easy escape again with your slam ability, as the punch ability often gets caught in enemies if you try and escape with it. Playing to displace enemies is very effective if you already can stand on top of them before the fight starts. Punching them as they cross under, or simply using it to split them up when playing against a team that wants to group up and brawl is very effective. Also, Doomfist excels in maps where you can knock them off easily, so definitely look to punch enemies as they play too riskily on maps like Legion Garden or Ilios well. For the third main playstyle, we're going to need to think more like a tank. Tanks get a huge portion of their value by pushing enemies as they go through choke points, or by refusing to let them through at all. So this is what playstyle it's all about, and of course is most effective on defense or when the enemy is recontesting after they've lost a fight. Play aggressively near a choke point and get ready to slam into the enemy as they walk through. When you see the enemy tank poke their head through, slam onto them. At this point, you'll usually have a good opportunity to either punch the enemy tank further into your team and away from safety, or punch a few members of the enemy back through the choke point and away from their team that has already crossed through. While you won't likely get a kill from this sort of play all the time, you'll be carrying your team as they'll be getting easy fight wins, as they'll be fighting with a player advantage at the beginning of each fight. As for Doomfist's other ability, don't be afraid to use power block early on to gain a powered punch, but also don't waste it if you're going to need it soon. It's a powerful ability, but keep in mind, Doomfist's ultimate is pretty simple, but should be used to go extra hard on an engagement. Slam into the enemy and punch them before you ult. Quick ultimates are usually the best as the enemy won't have as much time to react to them. As long as you predict where the enemy squishies are going, you can frequently secure kills and be ready to continue another set of slams into punches if you aren't too low HP. Just don't waste this ultimate if your team is losing. It doesn't quite have enough power to easily turn a fight, so stick to using it when you need to save your life and the fight is even, or you're only down by 1. If you're looking for some more Overwatch 2 content, then make sure to check out these videos I have right here. Like I said, I'm a top 100 Overwatch player, so I have lots of videos and things to share with you guys.